to this webinar. Welcome to this webinar, Creating Business Value in Latvia and Estonia. My name is Pauls Rauceps. I'm an editor and journalist at the bi-monthly Latvian business magazine Ir Nauda and a commentator at the weekly magazine Ir, and I will be the moderator of today's Top 101 debates. This year, for the first time, the corporate finance company Prudentia and the securities market NASDAQ have compiled a list not only of the most valuable 101 companies in Latvia, but of the most valuable companies in Estonia as well. And when you put the two lists side by side, you can immediately see quite a few striking differences. There's a lot to talk about, and the discussions today are sure to be interesting and enlightening. But before we start, I'll explain the ground rules of the webinar. We have a lot of participants, and to make sure that we don't keep interrupting each other, everyone except for the speakers will be muted during the course of the discussion. However, that doesn't mean we don't want listeners to participate. You are invited, I would even say encouraged, to submit your questions or comments in the chat section. We'll keep an eye on what's being written there and then address what you have to say to the speakers. It's possible we won't get to all the questions, so don't be shy. The sooner you submit a question, the better the chances are that you will get a hearing. I'm sure you've all heard of cases where meetings like this one have been crashed by trolls or other internet hooligans. If we see anyone acting improperly, we will block them so that everyone else can get the most out of the discussion. And finally, just so you're aware, the webinar will be recorded. Okay, that's about it for the housekeeping. For some of us, this kind of discussion will be a new experience, but I'm sure it will be a valuable one, so let's start. The first speakers will be Kārlis Krastīņš, Managing Partner of Prudentia Riga, and Sulev Raik. Yes, hello, Kārlis.
Yeah, hello, Paul. Hello to everybody. Tere, labdien, hello.
And Sulev Raik, a partner at Prudentia Tallinn. Hello, Sulev. Kārlis and Sulev will present the results of their report on the 101 most valuable companies in Latvia and Estonia. So please, Kārlis, Sulev, the floor is yours.
Paul, thank you for this good introduction. I again would like to thank you everybody who joined to this debate. We hope this 1 or 2 hours that we will spend here will be interesting and will bring some value. As you see from the name of this event, how to create business value in Latvia and Estonia. It's, I think, very interesting and very important question and interesting debate around it. And we will start this debate from our work that we are doing here in Prudentia already 14 years. It's the top 101 most valuable companies in Latvia. And with our colleagues in Tallinn, we started the same project in Estonia about Estonian companies. And as Paul said, it's a unique opportunity, first time for us to compare, to look to those results and then maybe make some valuable conclusions from it, as we hope. This project, as we are doing with NASDAQ already 14 years, as is written on our homepage, it's done for society, for all people in Latvia right now, in Estonia, and as well in other countries, to understand better what is the most valuable companies of our countries. Because unfortunately, the culture of listing, the culture of stock trading is still developing in our region. Only 11 companies from 202 in our top are listed. And therefore, with NASDAQ, 14 years ago, we decided let's have this list, because this is only opportunity for all people to look what are our most valuable companies, because on the stock exchange we have only a few of them. And as I joked, when in Latvia or in Tallinn, on Riga, on the NASDAQ will be like 50 or right now 100 companies from the total 202, then maybe we can decide to stop this work of making this list of 202 most valuable companies in Latvia and Estonia. But let's hope that our job will materialize in these listings. But let me then jump to a short presentation that I have presented. I can ask my colleagues. Yes, thank you. You see, I decided to use a little bit for something from our history, which is very similar for Latvia and Estonia. we feel somehow a little bit as large places or Kalevipoik in this work. It's very, very hard work that we are doing actually. Altogether, you have to understand each top that we are creating. We are evaluating around 400 companies to get to this 101 top list. Yeah, so we, like in 14 years, we can calculate how many annual reports my colleagues and myself we have went through, and how many like numbers we have calculated. It's really like good job and great work that we are doing. We think so. So therefore, let's go to the numbers, please. Next slide.
If I may, a short comment on this first slide. That actually I found out yesterday while I was studying your epic that actually Kalevipoeg and Lats places have met a long time ago on the grounds of Latvia. And they had a fight which they both fortunately survived. And after that, two heroes decided that Latvians and Estonians should live in peace because we share the same values and we have the same enemies. So I think that was a good idea and still is. So.
Yeah, Sulev, thank you. Excellent point from you. Yes, I think, yeah, so we are very similar countries and we have a lot of common in our history, and therefore I think this economical aspect and angle that we will that we are doing and we are creating, and that we can compare ourselves and maybe have some interesting suggestions and practical, let's say, solutions to find from this side that will even help and bring together more closely our countries. But then coming back to this numbers, those numbers and top 101, you see that in Latvia and Estonia, in general, the proportion of top in the GDP is relatively close, yeah. But of course, from this we can see very well that in Estonia the top value of 101 most valued companies is higher as well in absolute terms as well in relative terms from the GDP. And why it is so, of course, it's a good question, and we will try to answer it in later discussions, in later slides that I will present, and Sulev as well will comment. So I think probably the solutions and answers will be in next slide. Please, next slide. Yeah, this is very informative slide. It shows us what is the industries so which are represented in top 101, and then we can see here that there is a lot of industries which have similar percentage in the total value of the top, like utility services, like manufacturing of industrial goods, like trade, energy carriers, like the first place, like transport, transit, logistics. But as well, we can see that there are big differences. For example, like real estate operations or consumer good tradings and manufacturing of energy carriers. So still our economies have different structure, and this structure is represented in top 100 most valuable company list. And yeah, for example, we can ask, I can ask myself then what we are like talking about, that like leading industry in both countries, transport, transit and logistics. And if I take a look to my second screen, I can see that for example, in Latvia, we are talking about Latvijas Dzelzceļš, Rīgas tirniecības osta, Connexus Baltic, Ventspils naftas terminals, Air Baltic, Race. So you see like different companies, aviation, logistics with the tracks. And so in Estonia, the structure is in the industry a little bit different. It's of course, like number one is Tallink, but there is Port of Tallinn and other more like port terminals, and this kind of companies are there. So industry the same, but the companies are a little bit different in their operations and different business models a little bit. So it shows like these differences, and you can you can take a look at the homepage top100.lv or .ee and E, and you will see the list of all companies. But what you can see very well here is, for example, the real estate, and this is in general very classical like industry in every country, and somehow Estonia is doing much well in this industry, because you see clearly it's the second largest industry in top 101, and in Latvia is only like 3%, and it will be like not even in top 7 or top 8 industries. It's really shows us that in last 5-10 years in Estonia, the real estate companies are much like concentrated. They have concentrated capital. They are bigger. The market is probably more consolidated. I think in Latvia we have very small, a lot of companies which are developing different projects, but yeah, it clearly shows the difference. But as you see, the Viljar is there from the F10, one of the largest real estate developers in the Baltic countries. He of course can tell more about, but from the top perspective, clearly the real estate operations in Estonia, they are bringing much value to the top. Not the case in Latvia. Okay, but then please next slide. Yeah, very important slide, because as you maybe know, the methodology of our top mainly is based on EBITDA multiplier. There is as well sales multiplier that we are using by counting company enterprise value. And clearly, of course, very simply, if the companies have higher EBITDA margin, they have higher value. And clearly in this this aspect, you see that Estonia is doing really surprisingly well, because 26% like median EBITDA multiplier is really good result. So it's really good result, even taking into account that number one, Tallink is operating is not very high multiple, not very high EBITDA margin, sorry. So that means that the rest of companies are doing really well. In Latvia, 16%, it's I think as well good, but in Estonia, 26, it's really good, and it is I guess the main answer why, in general, in Estonia, the companies, the total value of the companies in Estonia is higher. And on the second part of the slide, you see the median EBITDA multiplier. It depends from the industry. If the industries which are represented, as in previous slides, you see, are having much higher multipliers on the stock exchange, then the industry companies are higher in the value. The difference between Latvia and Estonia is not very big, like 8.3 to 9.5, but anyway, in Estonia, a little bit higher. Why, you will see then in next slides. Please, next slide.
Kallis, I wanted to comment a little bit on this EBITDA margin also, that if you can, put the previous slide back, that is the difference is significant, yeah, 26 versus 16, but it is also partly related to the real estate. As we saw from the previous slides, that real estate companies represent like 15% of the value of the Estonian top. I checked the number of real estate companies which are in the top, and it is 21 versus 6 in Latvia. And why this is important is because, for example, real estate operators, they've had really healthy margins recently. So, but on the other hand, they are smaller on average than the average top company. So if we, for example, here is median EBITDA margin. So if we took weighted average EBITDA margin, then the difference would have been smaller. So again, here also we see the effect of the real estate sector. That's comment.
Yeah. So thank you, Sula. I fully agree with you. I looked to the top real estate companies in Estonian top, and like F10 is number 3. There is other 2 companies with like 500 million enterprise value each of them. So it's really high, and EBITDA level is really, as you mentioned, really good for the business.
Yeah, on average, EBITDA margin for those companies has been above 50. In some cases, nearly 100. So that has been really high. Yeah.
Yeah, the question is good. It's sustainable in the long term. I think not. Yeah, and that's will, of course, we will see next tops, you know, for the future. Yeah, but that's a good point. Yeah, and this show what is here is clearly showing and confirming Sulev's conclusions. So you see how what is the median multiplier as well for the real estate companies. It's 12.4. Yeah. So in Latvia, the second largest industry is utilities, utility services, and they are of course more conservative and not so much valuable companies, and like 2 times, and it's clearly gives a lot of value for Estonian top 101. Yeah.
Carlos, I see that Tinu Palm has a question for you. Maybe we could
Yes, please
unmute him.
Let's go.
Just for our listeners, Tinu is the chief economist for Luminor in Tallinn, and he will be speaking later. But I understand he would like to ask something or say something right now. Tinu?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Just a comment that when we are talking about economic structure, then if you look on the contribution of different industries to GDP in terms of value added in current prices, which is basically reflecting also profits of companies, then actually Latvia is doing pretty well in representation of a real estate sector, which is 12.4% of total value added in 2019, whereas in Estonia it's around slightly over 10%. And if you take Scandinavian countries, it's usually high single digits, like 8-9%. So in that sense, it's overall still we are quite much relying on what is happening in real estate market and construction.
Yeah, good comment. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you,
Carlos.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm like coming close to end of our like credentials presentation. Okay, then maybe please next slide. Yes, this is the like angle. What is the capital base? What is the ownership structure of the companies? The differences are not very big. You can see here that in Estonia, the local or national ownership is a little bit higher than in Latvia. So in Estonia, 62% are owned by local capital from the top, and in Latvia, less than half or 46%. So in Latvia, the companies with foreign majority ownership are doing a little bit better than in Estonia in terms of value. And yeah, the companies, the number of companies which are owned by foreign companies, you can see on the last graph here. So so the differences are not very big, but yeah, in general, we can see that in Latvia, more companies little bit than in Estonia owned by foreign capital. There is no simple conclusion, so it's good or bad. That's easy. I think it's more or less the same in both countries. So, but the difference is you can see here. So this equation, this is the result of some different business environment or other that we can maybe ask later our other colleagues here on our panel. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is very important slide, and unfortunately, as being a Latvian and being a long time on Nasdaq supervisory board, of course, long time ago. But anyway, I would like to see this picture better for Latvia. But clearly, we see that Estonian companies in corporate governance and transparency, this index, which is evaluated by the Nasdaq, is significantly better. Yeah, so it's I think the as well answer to the value differences. If you are transparent, if you are having good books and everything, so the investors evaluate it, and they're ready to pay more for the company which is having good corporate governance, which is having like good policy and attitude towards all investors, treating them equally, yeah? So proportionally, depending, of course, from their rights and their participation in the shareholder capital. But so that is important. And then listed companies, as in the beginning I mentioned, still very few companies are listed in Estonia, a little bit more than in Latvia, 7 to 4. As I said, I hope that this discussion will bring us better results later, and I'm sure that more companies will be listed on stock exchange. So that's from my side is all. Maybe Sulev, you can add something.
I think that in this very last slide, that the right side of the slide explains partly the left side of the slide, because usually the listed companies tend to be more open and transparent, and also because of the requirements by the exchange. And also, of course, there might be other reasons, and like business culture. I think Estonian business culture is, as well as Latvian, of course, is affected by the Scandinavian business culture. What can be also the reason is that Estonia has not had like a corporate income tax for decades, and that excludes the desire to do some maneuvering and also, I don't know, that's just my maybe impression that in Latvia you have more like a Russian capital, right? So the Russian capital tends to, doesn't want to be too very much exposed, yeah, and they want to keep low profile. So that might be also, I mean, due to the capital, foreign capital structure, and of course there might be many other reasons, but the difference here is also quite remarkable.
Okay, thank you, Carlos and Sulev. I see that unfortunately none of our listeners have asked a question in the chat, and I'd like to encourage you, don't be shy. Please, if you don't know where the chat is, you can bring your mouse down to the bottom of the screen and you'll see a little balloon there that says chat. Just click on that and you can write in your question and we will be sure to ask it. But since nobody is asking, I just had one quick question for Carlos and Sulev, and I was wondering, looking at this comparison for the first time, was there anything that surprised you, that you said, oh, I didn't expect that, or that we learned something that we, with all our experience, we didn't really know?
For me, 26% EBITDA margin, it's great. But Sulev explained, and Antonio as well mentioned his point. Yeah, but it's surprisingly high. I think 26. It's very good.
So, yeah, anything surprise you?
Yeah, actually, that margin surprised me too, and that's why I was, starting to dig deeper into this figure, and then again, yeah, that was because of the real estate. As I mentioned, there are many smaller, relatively smaller real estate companies in Estonian top which have really good margins. And another actually outcome which surprised me a bit was this foreign capital involvement. I was thinking that I know that Estonia, or I mean the foreign investments are important for any country, and Estonia has that has been one of the top priorities for Estonia and for Estonian governments, especially for liberal coalition, when liberal coalition is leading, and that is a kind of surprise but still I think that we should look deep again into the structure of these foreign investments, where they come from, and what is the origin of these foreign investments. And again, as I mentioned before, that my impression is that Latvia has been historically more attractive for Russian capital than in Estonia, and the difference, the reason of this difference might be there. But that is purely a speculation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sulev. Let's move on to the next part of our webinar. We've had sort of a top-down look looking at these businesses from the point of view of annual results, balance sheets, financial indicators. But how does doing business in Latvia and Estonia look on the ground? To talk about this, we have two company founders, owners, one from Latvia and one from Estonia, but both of whom have experience in working in both countries. First, a small business perspective. Aivars Runģis. Aivars, hello. Wave your hand. Let me see where you are.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Aivars. Aivars Runģis is the founder and co-owner of Valmiermuiža Craft Brewery, whose beers are popular on both sides of the Latvian-Estonian border. Aivars will talk about doing business in both countries. Aivars, please.
Yeah, labdien, tere. Hello, everyone. So a little bit small insight into small craft brewery and into introduction a little bit about the business. So I started up in my hometown 10 years ago. Then we grew up from 200,000 liters to 2.2 million liters of beer. Basically, we have reached the maximum capacity, and we have 1.5% of Latvian market share. And sometimes as a small craft brewery, we ask what next? Should we become as big as Saku, which means it's 50 times bigger, or actually we should grow value, not volume. And we have taken a decision to grow value, not volume. And if you look how we are financed, then 60% is majority owned by me as a company founder, and 40% is owned by Austrian German industrial family. They are long-term investors, and the investors who normally don't plan an exit. And the question is, are we a big brewery or a small brewery? And it's also very relative. Normally, when Estonians come to us, they say we are a big brewery. When Latvians come to our breweries, they say we are medium-sized brewery. When some German people come to us, they say we are small brewery. And if some American people come to us, they say we are micro brewery. So I don't know what is the size because it's very relative. But for Latvia, we say we still qualify as a small craft brewery because for Latvia, according to law, if you don't brew more than 5 million liters a year, you still qualify as a small brewery. And what I see is the commonalities between Latvia and Estonia. And I have been brewing for 10 years, and I could say that the last 10 years for craft breweries in Latvia and Estonia have been like golden age. The craft beer market has been booming. So you could see it in restaurants and bars, you could see it in supermarkets, that the number of breweries, the number of different tastes is just increasing and increasing and increasing. So if we are wondering why, probably the first reason is about large places, and also probably he was drinking some mead in this epos, and the same for Estonians. So basically, beer is regarded as a national drink in Latvia and Estonia. And we believe that the beer should be high quality because we enjoy beer on festive tables, not only in Ligua in midsummer, but also in restaurants. And second could be the reason that I think investing in beer is quite a safe business, because we could say that beer and bread has been here around for 10,000 years, and probably it could be around also for next 1,000 or 10,000 years. So in a way, relatively safe business. And what we see in figures that, for example, in Latvia, the number of small craft breweries in last 10 years has increased 4 times, so from 15 to 60. So the number of craft breweries in Latvia per capita could be even higher than in United States now, which is seen to be the origin of craft beer movement. For example, in Estonia, the number of craft breweries has increased from 5 to 30. So it's also like 6 times in the last 5 years, actually, I would say. And in Latvia, the craft breweries make around 20% of total market. In Estonia, I would estimate it's 2 times less, maybe some 10%. Because in Latvia, this, in a way, craft beer movement actually started in Soviet times, because some kolkhozs needed some beer to make some money, to build some cultural houses, and etc. So in Latvia, this love for craft beer has been for a while. Interesting for Estonia is that in the last 5 years, the small breweries have become larger. They try to expand. Probably, as you know, that the most known craft brewery in Estonia, Pohjola, they are funded by a group of investors. They really increased very much the brewing capacity. The second, another, I think, very good craft brewery in Estonia is Tanker. Probably you know them. And they are, again, interesting that they are crowd-funded, something similar like Brewdog has been doing some 10 years or 20 years ago. Both breweries have big ambitions, and let's see how they develop. And what is the selling idea behind craft beer as an industry? I think the selling idea is something similar like for a wine, because we try to focus on quality and not on quantity. Because one is clear, if you are a small brewery, you cannot build value by building the volume, because there will be always some breweries, is it a Heineken, or is it a Guinness, or is it a Carlsberg, who will be much larger and will be able to capitalize on economies of scale. So the small brewery is more similar like to a nice restaurant, focusing on taste, focusing on variety, and trying to build value by values. In a way, we say that the small brewery will be dead when it will lose heart. So the heart of a small brewery, or like of a small restaurant, is very important. And then even if we when I was looking for an investor, I was also looking for an investor not only with a wallet, but also with similar heart. So it's something like a marriage story a little bit, because you really need an investor you could have the same shared values for a long time. Next, if we see about Latvia and Estonia, is that the beer is really appreciated more in restaurants and bars. And what was a big surprise for us, that Estonians started to demand our beer. And we have a joke that Estonians say that the best wine from Latvia is Valmiera Muiža. So in a way, it shows what is the positioning. And then we realized that yes, the taste of our beer and the concept of our beer coming from a small manor near Valmiera Muiža, is liked by Estonians. It's a lager with a sophisticated, elegant taste. And then we came up with a concept, and we started to say, yes, Estonians are our best neighbors. Estonians are our best neighbors. Let's work together. Let's make friends with our neighbors. Let's work more closely to our neighbors. And then, as a nice, which really approved our idea, that a half a year ago, President of Estonia on the Latvian Prime TV was telling and that really Estonians like Latvian beer. So I was really very happy that Estonian president said good words about Valmiera Muiža. I have not yet received this compliment from President of Latvia about our beer. So this, in a way, shows this respect for Estonians to Latvia, and vice versa. And so we decided to develop in Estonian market. And one way how to build the value, we try to be also as local as possible. And one way how to be local in Estonia, we have our local ambassador in Estonia. So you could wonder what is his name. So his name is Jānis, which is the most famous name in Latvia. But actually he's, since age 5, he's living in Estonia, and he has been graduated university in Estonia, and he has Latvian passport, and he has a challenge. The challenge he has that Estonians do not perceive him as Estonian, and Latvians do not perceive him as Latvian. So who is he? He's probably Latestian, probably. So the question is that there are more and more people, I see, that which is also Latvians living in Estonia, or Estonians living in Latvia, sometimes even speaking fluently both languages. And I'm thinking that a small business has an opportunity to build this bridge between Latvia and Estonia, and work even more closely together.
I hate to interrupt, but we have a slightly limited time, so maybe you could talk a little bit about the differences in business environments, and then we can move on to Jan's
Yes.
presentation.
Yes. Okay. And then what I see at the end, the big difference is there are three differences what I see, which is like separating as a part. So big difference is tax gambling, we could call it. I use the word gambling because you see it also about alcohol, there are like alcohol wars between Latvia and Estonia. And this really makes it difficult for business. Like 2 years ago, we had very huge sales in Estonia. When Estonia increased alcohol tax twofold, we lost half of the business just on the next day because of the increased alcohol tax. So I think this really hurts small craft breweries on both sides, Estonian and Latvia. Second, which hurts both sides is the deposit system, because in Latvia there is still no bottle deposit system. In Estonia there is a bottle deposit system, and as a result, if I need to sell beer in Estonia, I need to add special stickers, special labels, so I could also sell it in Estonia, which is also problematic, but I think it will be solved. And the last but not least, I see that in order to sell a bottle in Valga, which is a border town, Estonian side, I need to transport this bottle first to exercise warehouse in Tallinn and then send it back to Valga because it's an exercise good. So it's a lot of bureaucracy. So I would be happy if in one day I could sell craft beer in Estonia and Latvia as easy as it's done for bread or for any other product, because maybe digital solutions could start to help, that I could just pay excise tax to Estonian government from Latvia, but it is not possible yet. So really to decrease barriers between these two countries. And as a last slide, what I really believe that Latvia and Estonia could be like a joint market. It could be like a one market. And what we see is that companies really cooperate on latest scale. So there is Baltic scale logistics centers, the supermarket chains start to integrate on pan-Baltic level, distributors integrate on pan-Baltic level. But if I'm trying to sell alcohol on pan-Baltic level, it's still not working because the markets are really, really very, very separated. So my vision would be that I could sell beer in Valga or in Viljandi as easy, as cheap distribution as it is for Latvia. And so this could be my wish, that there is less boundaries, less barriers, and let's build digital bridges between countries, so it makes easier for Estonian breweries to sell in Latvia and Latvian breweries to sell in Estonia. And a last comment, so one way towards it is that finally also in Latvia we can sell beer in internet. So this is thanks to COVID, government made a decision finally. So basically all small craft breweries now could sell their beer. Estonian breweries could sell in pan-Baltic and Latvian breweries could sell in pan-Baltic. So digital solutions could also help for small craft breweries. So we are small breweries, and the idea is to focus on value building. Thank you.
Thank you, Aigars. It's interesting what you ended on, the effect of COVID on perhaps breaking down certain boundaries, moving to digital, allowing us to overcome the splits that still exist, despite the fact that we have the same currency, we're all part of the European Union. Perhaps in some ways, COVID will help. And I know that Jan, in his presentation, will also be talking about the effect of COVID. We're now moving to the next presenter to see how the business environment looks from Estonia. And Jan Lutz is the co-owner and member of the supervisory board of TMB Elements. Hello, Jan.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. TMB Elements is one of the leading producers in the Baltic states of concrete elements used in construction. And Jan will now make a presentation about how the business environment looks to him, and also maybe I understand some forecasts about the future. Please, Jan.
Yes, I am making a view to two different directions. First of all, to the previous crisis, which took place during the years of 2008 to 2010, and then the other side is a view to the running crisis, which has started some months ago. At first, we are operating in a construction market, building material industry, and we are making precast concrete elements. And the company was a group. A year ago, we had plants in Estonia, the mother company, then in Latvia, and also in Finland and Sweden. But in the present time, we operate only in one company in Estonia. Just looking back to the previous crisis, then the situation was totally different from this situation, which is now in construction market. The market was booming. I can say even that it was not a market, because prices were up, banks were pressing money to everybody, and the situation was not normal. And then suddenly, if the crisis appeared, then the decline was very deep and sudden, and even the market dropped down more than 60%. I can say it's 2/3 of the market collapsed within 1 year, and it was a very big surprise to everybody. And what were the chances to go on at that time? First things which company do is to cut savings, to cut costs, to try to raise efficiency, but it doesn't help much, because the prices fall down even more than you could cut the costs. It mean that you have to do something else. And the other thing, what companies did, they appeared to the banks and to take bank loans. But this was the wrong way, because who did that? They soon collapsed, and it happened also in Estonia the same way. Who had bank loans, they didn't survive. But what we did, just we looked around, and because in that time the market was mainly local market. We didn't do export because the construction was booming, and there was no need to do export in that time. Just we looked around. We had a quite good position, because we didn't have euro at that time. Our costs were lower than in export markets, and the situation was pretty favorable to do export. And of course, to survive that period was necessary to increase equity also, because, as I said, if you apply to banks, then that was not a good idea. We had to increase equity to find new markets, export markets. The markets were not far away. Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark were quite close for us, because of course we are not. Our product is not in a global market. Of course, we can't export these concrete elements to very far away. And then, so we find new markets, especially in Finland and in Sweden. And then we started to invest also. And by the way, we invested to Latvia first, quite remarkably, and that investment was very successful. Our Latvian company became the best company in our group, and I can say it was the best company in whole Baltics also. It's a very good company and operated well. And if we, as our issue is to compare maybe two countries, what is the difference? Then the Latvian company was more open-minded. They looked more around, wider than the Estonian company. Of course, the starting situation was also a bit different. As I said, in Estonia, the building sector boomed. In Latvia, maybe not so much at that time, because there was not so strong local market in Latvia in that crisis times. And then we succeeded with these investments, and also there was a possibility to do mergers and acquisitions also in that time. Especially in Estonia, we negotiated with nearly with all our competitors, and were quite quite successful in the first stage, but in the very end, there was no mergers and acquisition, which rarely took place. And so we survived this crisis within, let's say, 2 or 3 years. And of course, the EBITDA margin was negative. We did a loss, but we covered it with equity increase. And of course, in our industry, you can't reach to the EBITDA margin to 60 or 26% or even 16, which was in top 101 in average. That is, in our industry, it's not possible. But we reached to the level of about 14–15%, which was also quite perfect. And so, and the recovery time in construction market was about 5 years from that crisis, starting from 2008 and lasting up to 2013. Then it was nearly in the same level as it was in 2007. And now the next slide, which is the corona crisis, which is taking place now. Of course, honestly say, I don't know what to do exactly, because the crisis has started, and I can only do my prognosis and the outlook, which I expect that happens. And as I said, the situation is now different. The construction market is not booming. It is in normal running on. It's even started to decline even last year a little bit, and the same in building material industry also. And in that position, I think and predict that the decline will be not so deep as it was in the previous crisis. Maybe 25–30%. Okay, might be, yes, in that area. But in spite of that, it puts us in a very bad situation. We do loss. It is surely we do that. The EBITDA will also be negative, but not so much as it was in previous crisis. We hope to be maybe some -5%, might be. That's good. And of course, we have again to increase equity. It should be done, otherwise we can't stand with. Now, these possibilities, which were last time the new markets, it's questionable because, as I said, our market is not global, and the situation is the same in all our nearby markets. And we have not so many advantages, because now our price level is already also higher, and it's very difficult to find new markets. Of course, we can look over our eastern border, but it's not very serious to do that side. And also investments in the current situation is quite not realistic, as I can say. And of course, one can think out new business ideas or new business models. Yes, it can help. But in our industry, it's also quite difficult, because we can't go to tailor masks or something else to do, because our product is quite conservative. It has been the same for decades, not so much new in this branch. But what is the option is to make mergers and acquisitions. I think that's the way to go on, because it is possible in Estonian market, and also between Estonia and Latvia. That's an option to do that. And we're seriously looking now also to see what happens exactly, how long this recession lasts, and in the right moment start to negotiate with the competitors in Estonia and Latvia. And then if you merge, then you get bigger, and your position is much stronger, and operate alone only. So, and of course, I predict that this crisis will not last more than 3 years, but who knows it exactly. at least we expect that it is not so bad as it was the financial crisis in 2008. So briefly, that is my opinion or view to this crisis.
Thank you, Jan. An interesting prognosis that the crisis could lead to consolidation and larger, more powerful companies. That would be a good thing for if we had larger sort of champions from the Baltic states. Now, we've concluded this look at from both sides of the border, and I think we can now expand the discussion to our panel discussion. I also encourage all our listeners to chime in with their questions on the chat. But now, in addition to the people who have already spoken, we will now be opening up the discussion to include Viljar Arakas. He is the CEO of Efton Capital, the largest commercial real estate fund manager in the Baltic states. Hello, Viljar. Are you there? Hello.
Yeah, hi, Hume. I hope you hear me.
Okay. Yeah. And Daiga Auziņa-Melnauksne, the CEO of Nasdaq Riga. Hello, Daiga. Are you there? Hello, Daiga. And to Tino Palm, the chief economist of Luminor Estonia. Hello, Tino. Hello, Tino. Are you unmuted? Unmute you. There you go.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, okay,
Yeah.
Very good. So we're all here. And I'd like to start the discussion with a question to Viljar. We've heard a lot about the real estate sector in Estonia as opposed to one in Latvia. How do you explain this difference in the two economies? Why is the real estate sector more prominent in Estonia than in Latvia?
Well, I think the explanation is quite easy and simple. We are Estonians more active in Latvian real estate business than Latvians in Estonia. So a lot of those assets are consolidated on Baltic level in Estonia. Efton only has invested 200 million euros to different properties in Latvia, developed some of ourselves. For instance, Spitsa, as one of the largest shopping centers in Riga, is owned by Capital, also from Estonia. So basically, all this consolidation takes place on mother company level, which are more in Estonia than in Latvia. The other aspect is also quite self-explaining. I mean, we are also developing apartments in Riga, and when I compare the sales price Tallinn versus Riga, of course, it's very hard to compare one single apartment to another one in another city, but still, I would say this price difference is like 25% till 1/3 per new apartment square meter. So this value-added aspect of real estate business in Estonia is higher than it has been in Latvia. And the reasons are our average salary is higher. That's why people are more bankable, easier to get loans, so forth. So I think those are the two major aspects, actually, and nothing more too tricky about it.
Mm-hmm. Carlos mentioned that the industry seems to be more concentrated in Estonia than it is in Latvia. Is that has there been a greater interest in pooling forces among companies in Tallinn and other places in Estonia?
No, I don't say that's the fact in real estate business, but it has been like an unofficial religion in Estonian real estate industry that once you have developed your scale in a local market, then the next place you go is Riga. And some most brave of us even go to Lithuania, but none of real estate developers too much to Finland or Sweden. Construction companies, yes, and also sub-constructing companies go to Scandinavia as well, but not real estate developers as so much. So those are the main reasons behind them.
Okay, thank you, Viljar. I have a question for Tino. In his presentation, Jan looked into the future on how the COVID-19 crisis might affect company valuations. Now, your job as the chief economist of Luminor is to try to understand what's happening in the economy, how it might develop. What's your view of the business environment in the Baltics now and in the future, and how will that affect company valuations?
COVID is quite an interesting challenge because it's broad-based deceleration in the economy. Initially focusing on services, but then with a lag, it will affect other parts of the economy, which is manufacturing, and thereafter construction, real estate, and depending on this labor market situation. So if you take this Latvian example, I think it's worth looking what has actually happened from a value-added point of view from 2012. You remember this euro debt crisis, the height of the crisis, after which euro, the key export market for Baltic, started to recover. So what were the largest contributors in terms of growth in value added in Latvia? The first sector is actually ICT, which growth was close to 80%. The second comes agriculture. The third is science and technology, and then comes public administration. And only after that, in 40% growth is real estate construction, and the large sectors like industry and manufacturing, the value-added growth from 2012 to 2019 was only 20. So remember, ICT 80%, manufacturing 20%, and that explains also that these large companies in these manufacturing and industries, they overall struggled. In Estonia, we had like 124% growth in ICT, and second came science and technology, and then administration parts. So in that sense, I would say that some of these trends will actually continue, because if you look what happened in the past, in 2009, in terms of company marketplace, then the construction sector value-added in Latvia was dropping for 2 years, in total about 80%. And since there was not so much resources available, so we were not part of euro, we didn't have these full-scale packages. The labor market took a huge hit. The construction sector, as it was noted in earlier presentation, was much more booming before. So compared to construction sector value-added, in total value-added, it's down compared to 2007, it's down 3.3% in Latvia. So it's not as high share in value-added currently. In Estonia, the difference is minus 3.6. So now when we are hit with a crisis, I would expect it to happen some scenario which is in between Finland and the Baltics. So when we had a 60% drop in Estonia in value-added in construction, Finland took a hit just 9% first year. So we will not be able to replicate Finland, but basically we will have a softer blow there. The other difference was that manufacturing recovered at the same speed like Scandinavia, as we are in the value chains. And it took 3 years for manufacturing to recover. In Sweden, it was 2 years. So I think manufacturing and construction can, if we do it right, we will not have as a huge drop in construction. And we will do better compared to even some real estate and wholesale areas, which will be hit by the labor market issues. So some of the labor market issues will drag the fixed purchases of cars and real estate. They will wait for a while. And so that sense, recovery in retail sector, it took last time, it took in Latvia 6 years. In Finland, it was 3 years. So again, here, the hit will be less because the economies are in better shape. And but I would expect that some of these changes will be much better compared to last year. And the other remark was that ICT sector was hit as also less in the Baltics at the time, and now ICT will be a part of a solution. So sectors will do in terms of value better, which are part of the solution currently, and this transition will happen in 3 phases. First is the initial shock. Industries which are providing a solution like medicare, ICT, food industry, where they're even on Latvian inflation, you see Latvian inflation has come down to 0, it will come down to rates. but what is growing is food inflation. So some sectors initial who provide a solution for really the products what client need at the first stage will do better. Then we move to the second phase, which is trying to, with the business areas and governments to smooth this crisis. Then another sectors will appear. And I expect that in Q3 we will have manufacturing coming back, as this is our forecast for Europe, and where we are hit very severely in the next quarter. Q3 will be tough, but thereafter we should see some improvement. And what comes in the third stage is really where we see investment, and that's the choice of investment. I hope construction will receive some investment. So it's will be interesting play.
Okay, thank you, Dono. Pretty optimistic forecast. I say we'll return to that, but I just wanted before that to ask Daiga a question about the transparency in governments. You're an expert in this because for companies to be listed on NASDAQ, they have to be transparent and open about their books and their finances. Why, in your opinion, do Estonian companies have higher corporate governance and transparency ratings than Latvian companies?
Yeah, thank you, Pauls. That indeed is a very good question. And before I start to answer it, I think it's important to say that what we really measure, it's not like corporate governance or transparency. What we measure is how companies disclose information about their corporate governance and about other things. And it is our belief that if companies regularly disclose information about their financials, publish annual reports on their web pages, inform about who are their management board members and supervisory board members on their websites, and in general, not only list the names, but also show what is their sort of previous experience and so on and so on. If companies are not secretive about who are their owners or beneficial owners, they are better governed, therefore more valuable. And also, of course, additional factor when we evaluate companies is company preparing also ESG and CSR reports, which is also obviously a very modern thing today. And we say that companies, if they disclose more, are better governed because their business models are more sustainable. They are more trusted by the stakeholders, by banks, by investors, by employees, by governments and societies at large. And today in COVID-19, companies' business sustainability in many areas depend on availability of financing. And more open, transparent companies have better position, be it bank loans or be it corporate bond issues, or as currently now also governments are trying to intervene and invest in equity capital. So if company is transparent, then it has better chances of surviving also this crisis and continue successfully further. And this transparency rating, in our view, is also very important because the companies are quite different in our top 101. There are state-owned companies, there are listed companies, large private companies, and so on. And those companies employ hundreds of thousands of employees, pay millions in taxes, and provide essential infrastructure, not only to, let's say, societies, but also to other businesses. And therefore, economic health of the region in general depends on well-being of those companies. So we often think about how we can describe those companies in top 101. And we like to say that they are backbone of our economy. And if backbone of our economy is not as transparent as it should be, it actually presents an economic risk. And this is why we measure this criteria. And it is really hard to say why companies are more transparent in Estonia than in Latvia. But I think it also has a lot to do with development of capital markets. And we, as it was also showed on slide by Carlis, that there are more companies listed in top 101 in Estonia than it is in Latvia. And of course, capital markets are for transparent companies, and not only for transparent companies, but also for companies with great ambition. And I think ambition is expired by example. And when we look at the Estonian economy, we see that there are a lot of great examples dating back to Hansabank when this company was listed, also in Tallinn Exchange, today to Eften, to Tallinn Port, and many other companies. And I think simply those positive examples have inspired also this transparency and an openness towards being open and looking for other development possibilities in Estonia and also in Latvia. And if there is ambition, then of course capital markets also play a very important role.
Okay, thank you, Daiga. I'll involve everybody else in this discussion, but before that, Nasdaq has prepared a little poll for all the listeners. I'm looking, we have 74 participants right now, and that's it. I understand we have a poll that you could put on the screen for us now. Is that right? Yes, there's a poll right here, and we can now, it would be interesting to see what you consider the main facts will be affecting company valuations in the Baltics in the future. And as you can see, we have various choices: digitalization, artificial intelligence, market consolidation, corporate governance and transparency, COVID-19, low interest rates. We're opening the poll now. Answer that, and we'll see what the results are as we end up the discussion. And I'll take some comments from our panel members on the results as well at the end. Right now, I wanted to ask Carlos and Sulev. Jan saw mergers and acquisitions as the way forward in the coming years for companies to develop, to become stronger. This is your bailiwick. This is what you do. Do you agree with him? Do you see companies being interested in mergers and acquisitions now, considering that, I mean, from some point of view, I might say the future is so uncertain. Do we really want to go and buy up companies not knowing what to expect in a year or two? How do you see this?
Yeah, maybe I will start. Of course, it's a good question. And of course, M&A as being as a strategy is relatively risky strategy because as somebody said, you can lose a lot and you can win a lot in right or wrong merger or acquisition. So therefore, of course, the companies must be very smart and careful in that like aspect. So being like 21 years in this business, I have seen a lot of positive and negative examples of like mergers and acquisitions. But yeah, I think of course what I can comment that with the COVID impact, we see that a lot of deals are postponed. A lot of deals that were started in March, they are not closed. Like in Prudential, we had 2 closings planned in end of March. Most of them are postponed. Deals are not dead, but somehow parties renegotiate the deal structure, trying to find some compromises. So yeah, it's unclear, and if the situation in the future is unclear, then of course to make a decision is more difficult. But I think Warren Buffett has a lot of great phrases, and I think right now the phrase which I can repeat is that he said, "You must be very careful when everybody is brave, but you must be brave when everybody is careful." So I think right now is time for brave people that really can decide in those unclear circumstances. As Jan mentioned, I think yes, the M&A is one of ways how the companies coming together. Let's put the egos a little bit down. They can survive this crisis, or not only survive, but get some better market position, better bargaining position by coming together. Because if the times are very good, then maybe these egoistic tendencies or trends are bigger. So I hope that this pure mergers where the companies are merging, not somebody is buying another like competitor, but companies are merging their operations to be stronger, to get better business platforms and products. So that's the COVID. This, let's say, we can say might be a positive effect of the COVID. Yeah. So I hope so. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay, I agree with Carlis that the companies are currently on wait and see mode. So because the crisis has just started and we don't know how long does it last, and probably it's not wise to rush now to make deals on the markets. So because the environment will probably continue to worsen. Timing wise, I mean, it's maybe not right to make M&A today. But the overall picture is not the same everywhere. I'm talking. There are sectors which have suffered more, and sectors which have suffered less. And in some sectors, we see that the activity actually hasn't really slowed down. So the crisis has not affected their M&A activity. So it's different by sectors.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask Viljar as well. Viljar, are you there? Can you hear me? Hello. Yes. How do you see the crisis affecting your sector, which is now such an important part of the Estonian business scene, and you've come into Latvia and are developing it as well? But how will that affect real estate? Are you? Hello. I can't. Could we unmute Viljar? Unfortunately, he's not. Hello.
Yes, sorry. There was some technical glitch and I couldn't unmute myself. The COVID situation in Baltic real estate market is the market is basically frozen. No arm's length deals are currently taking place. I mean, arm's length deal in a situation when the buyer doesn't need to buy and the seller doesn't need to sell. Because for a real estate transactions to go forward, one thing you need is visibility of the future cash flows, the future industry outlooks, and so those are currently totally unknown. I think the next couple of quarters will be quite brutal from a macroeconomic data point of view. But then again, I don't think that now life will change forever and we will start to work only from home and nobody goes to shop. And it will boost some activities like e-commerce is clearly winning from here on a way up. We need to transform our shopping centers more to services than shopping as such. So there are a lot of trends like that after the crisis will be finished. But from a transactions point of view, I do not expect any transactions to take place before fall. I think our last transaction was acquiring Air Baltic headquarters in Riga airport. Yes, so we closed this transaction just 2 weeks before Air Baltic stopped flying. So, and we worked on this transaction for the last 9 months to be happening. So real estate transactions take a long time, and I have to say from Efton side, we are not working on any new transaction for the time being, and we have decided in our investment team that we start to evaluate market again after the summer.
Okay. Well, the Latvian government is planning to invest hundreds of millions of euros into Air Baltic, so hopefully the headquarters will still be in use in the fall. Tino, you've raised your hand. Could you?
Yeah, I think there is a difficult 2 quarters, and in our forecast, the economy will not reach current level before 2 years in the best countries. I think Baltics will be one of the best countries in the group with Nordics. However, what we are seeing is the positive note is European economy is gradually reopening, and then Baltics has the best pandemic situation, which means that we are seeing that there is more workers travel between the Schengen area, which is now being open, and there is information from Germany, the biggest export engine and also the big tourist engine, that from mid-June there is no border controls for the nearby 9 countries. So things are improving. So let's hold to the seats and go through the very rough 2 quarters. U.S. chief economist from was just on the line on CNBC, and I think the forecast looked very similar what I had for Estonia. So he had like -5% year-on-year GDP drop in Q4, slightly more year-on-year. My forecast is that we will see also negative GDP drop next year beginning, but then this gradual recovery comes, and the equity markets, transparent equity markets, have recovered quite a bit in technology, in medical areas. In terms of Nasdaq has recovered quite much of a drop, and the companies which really are able to track clients go digital journeys. The customer will be as far as your mobile phone. Customers will be omni-channel. Medical sector will want solutions. People need clean food, which the Baltics can provide. So there will be interesting areas to have mergers and acquisitions and have also investments. Stop. Thanks.
Thank you, Tino. We're coming up on 20 past 3, so we're going to be wrapping up soon, and I think it's a good time to look at the poll, which has some, in my opinion, pretty interesting results. Our listeners have rated digitalization and COVID-19 as the 2 factors with the greatest effect on company valuations. COVID-19 doesn't surprise me, but it's interesting that digitalization is higher than corporate transparency, higher than market consolidation. Panel members, what do you think of these results? Why do you think our listeners are saying that pointing to digitalization is so important? Who'd like to say something?
May I say, Carlos, here? Yeah. So I think in this aspect, those 2 questions are related, because somehow everybody agrees that COVID-19 was the main positive effect is this digitalization, that people are doing a lot from their home in internet, and businesses have to adapt to that. Some part of the old traditions when people, as Viljar said, visited, for example, shopping malls for one reason. Right now, the reason maybe will be different. Yeah. So this is, I think, this digitalization is discussed like everywhere. Yeah, that we have to move more digital, because I can talk about M&A transactions. We can clearly see how the Baltic countries are, let's say, leading in the Europe in terms of digital signing documents, digital ordering, a lot of papers from the banks or from the state institutions. Our partners or investors from Central Europe are just wondering how we are well prepared and what we do. So in countries like Germany, Austria, Czech Republic, you forget it. It's impossible what we are doing here. So is the documents and digital solutions. So they are far away from us in this aspect. Therefore, I think, yeah, the digitalization is clearly the best aspect from the COVID impact. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can comment as well. If you look going forward, I think clearly digitalization, technology and science, if you compare to Sweden, Sweden has had very good recovery, and how they are preparing in that sense. Swedish science and technology branch in total value added is 3 percentage points higher than in Latvia and 2 percentage points than in Estonia. So clearly, even though we have increased this share, it's far behind of the Nordics, which are investing in R&D 3%, 4% in South Korea. So in that sense, this will be linked with the ICT area. In ICT situation is that in Estonia, we ICT branch is now, as I mentioned, from 2012 we increased 124% growth in value added in nominal terms, and now we match Sweden. So the Swedish share is 7.4% of total value added. But where we in Estonia miss is really R&D, science, technology, patents, and all this is really to reach the client. And our small and medium-sized companies realized that they didn't have this access to the clients via the full-scale digital solutions. So e-commerce went up. It faced difficulties in really putting the orders together. So the value chain, in a sense, worked. Customers reached it, but you couldn't deliver. You couldn't select. I think this is really is a key that food delivery, what is happening in US, New York, to medicines, to reaching actually elderly people. That will have a big change.
This makes me want to ask a question to Aigars, because Aigars also mentioned the possibilities of ordering beer online is something that you see as developing, but can that really replace what you had before? I mean, if restaurants will have less customers, can ordering online replace that? Can you see, is that making best of a bad situation, or do you really see that as a growth opportunity?
No, we also have been operating our internet shop for 1.5 months now, and we see that it potentially could give some 5% from all our sales, because still some most popular brands are bought in supermarkets and are available in supermarkets. But what it could really help small craft breweries for higher value, smaller batch brews to be distributed Baltic-wise, or even in the whole Europe. So I see in this hard times a growth possibility for breweries to sell in wider markets and to brew higher value beers, because in a way, like more popular beer still will be customers prefer to buy in a supermarket. So I see it as a growth opportunity, certainly.
And just as I said, we're coming in on the close. I just wanted to close on this issue of corporate governance and transparency. Daiga, I think, made a very strong argument for why this is important for valuations. Daiga, you see that it doesn't really rate. It's, I think, number 4 here. What could we do to increase awareness of the importance of this and make it play a larger role, especially in Latvia, where we're falling a little bit behind Estonia?
I think it will develop naturally, and there has to be a reason why to be transparent. And if, let's say, companies want to attract additional capital, then they will, and capital markets is a way how to do it. And then companies will become more transparent. And we also see that movement actually on banking side, that banks are also more and more demanding towards transparency and good corporate governance. So I think it's just a matter of a couple of years, and we will reach a lot better standards here in both countries.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for this very interesting discussion. I think we've learned a lot. Looking at the figures and comparing them for the top 101, certainly I was surprised to see the difference between the valuations, and also to see the larger role of real estate. And it makes you think about things that, for instance, that could develop in Latvia or could be done a bit differently in Latvia. I hope it was very interesting for the participants. I saw that we managed to stay at a level above 70 the whole hour and a half. So I think people were interested in the discussion. Thank you very much to all the panelists for participating. Thank you to NASDAQ and to Prudentia for organizing this. And see you again sometime. I hope that next time we can meet in person. It's still much nicer to do that than to do it through these screens, but we can see that this is also a possibility. So we're also moving in the direction of digitalization, as our poll indicates. So,
oh, sorry, we have one question.
Oh, one question. There's a question.
Yes.
Oh, really? Oh my God, a question.
This brave person, we should answer.
I told everybody that you have to ask the questions in time, not at the very last minute. Okay. In other words, the question is, how do you compare government support measures on COVID approaches in Estonia and Latvia? Which is more effective? I think that's who could answer, who feels ready to answer this question among our participants? Maybe from Prudentia or Jan, perhaps?
I don't know what are the measurements in Latvia. Estonian, yes, but
yeah. So it's difficult. It's difficult to compare if you don't know both. Does somebody feel ready to compare them?
That I think maybe I really, as the same Jan said, I know Latvian, I don't know so well Estonian. Of course, we follow the big cases like Tallink or Air Baltic and so on. That's very visible. But in general, I think we should be prepared for some kind of, how to say, competitiveness between European countries, which support will be like bigger. And I think that we have to be, especially manufacturing companies, careful looking what the Germany is doing. So the Germany, I think, is aggressively like trying to use this COVID crisis for supporting German companies. Yeah, so like 500 billion euros are prepared for different kind of products and support. Yeah, so I think Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, other countries just cannot allow us to sit and not to do. So of course it's some primitive way of some political competitiveness, but we should be ready for that. Therefore, this seems somehow is the effect of crisis, that governments are competing with huge support blocks for national economies in some kind of nationalism or this kind of trends we can see. So this will be a challenge for Latvia and Estonia, and especially smaller countries that we are. So that's my comment.
Interesting point, because we often just compare ourselves to our Baltic neighbors, but Germany is obviously very important. Daiga, you had? Yeah.
I think only time will show, and now we have a perfect tool, top 101 most valuable companies in Latvia, Estonia. So next year, around this time, we can also assess effectiveness of measures by government.
Okay, very good. So let's do that. And as I said, I hope we can meet in person next year, but digitalization is also a way forward. So maybe we will be doing this on Zoom or some other platform again. In the meantime, let's go out there and create some value. Thank you very much.